It's good, but I know a lot of people have been waiting for this one, and it is a bit grubby, as you can see. I've done this video a bit backwards. Usually I take the tool out of the box, we have a look at it, we go through the specs, and then I use it, and then I tell you what I think. Well, I couldn't control myself. I have routed a heap with this thing, and now I'll tell you about it. This is the world's first 1/2 inch cordless router, as I'm sure most of you will be aware, and presumably it's the first 36 volt cordless router available also. I will be comparing it later on to this Milwaukee 1/4 inch and my Triton 1/2 inch electric, plugs in the wall, old school, router. But first let's have a look at the features and the specs of this puppy. We'll take the battery off. That's the 4 amp hour on there at the moment. If you want to see it with the 2.5, it looks like that. In this part of the world, out of the box, you will get the tool. You'll get the 1/2 inch collet, which is currently on it. You will get a 1/4 inch collet. It's good that they include those, and they're both with captive nuts, which is also very good. Speaking of nuts, there is a couple of these little nuts that go on the dust port, which, as you can see, has quite a small hole. You can't get anything bigger than about 35 mil through there, so bear that in mind. Comes with this template guide that you stick in the bottom with the aid of the same screws that you use for this, so that's quite handy. And it also comes with a wrench, of course, for getting your collets undone. Now the tool itself is variable speed. It goes from 11,000, which is 1, up to 25,000, which is 6. Ah, 6. Yeah, I know. It is a plunge router, which means it does this. Okay, you can push it down and stop it wherever you want as you're doing your work. If you need to start part way along in a piece of timber, you can plunge it in, go along, and pop back up. It's not a very stiff plunge like some tools, which I like. I hate the ones that are too damn hard to push down and they're a bit jerky because of that. I think this one's quite nice. To lock the plunge, you have this interesting looking handle here. So if you go down and you have your hand here on the trigger, you flick that down, it locks, flick it back up, it unlocks. So depending on where you are, sometimes you'll flick your thumb over that one, and then you can flick your finger back up on that one to unlock it again. So it's quite an interesting design, and it looks a bit weird, but works really well. The trigger I like is kind of like a pistol grip here on the front. You need to push down the safety on the top here for it to work. So you push that down, pull the trigger, and then if you push the safety down even further and let go of the trigger, you now have it locked in position. So now you can route without having to hold your finger permanently on there, which is quite nice if you're doing big long runs. As soon as you touch the trigger again, it will release the lock. I forgot to mention it does in fact come with the fence as well, which is quite good. It has an adjustable feature here for just fine tuning when you want to move your fence in and out a little bit. I've used this extensively and it's quite good, but it does get in the way of the handle I found at the bottom here, and my hand at times would be pushing down on these, which should be coming down like that, pushing on there. Not the greatest in that regard, but you're trying to make things compact, sometimes you get issues like that. We have this depth gauge here for when you are plunging and you want to set things right, with the standard 3-prong adjustable thing at the base here that every 1/2 inch router seems to have. Some measurements there. I don't tend to use them that much. I use this, but I always set things with a ruler from the base with my bit in like that, so that I get it exactly how I want it. Once I've got this how I want it, I then line these up so that I know that I've got that set point that I can go back to. The locking pin is here for locking your collet for when you are changing your bits. Works fine. If you want one, remember these are pretty new to planet Earth, so I think they may only be available in Japan, Australia and New Zealand at present. I'm not sure, maybe you can get them in Europe. And even in New Zealand I know they are selling like hotcakes, so by the time I get this video out, you might be out of luck even. You might have to wait for the next batch to be imported. Have a look down in the description. There's a link to Handy Hardware. Give them a call, give them an email, see if they can get one for you. If you're in the UK and Europe, I'm not sure, I'll have a look and I'll put some links down below if I can. And remember, if you're in the States, it won't say Hikoki, it'll be Metabo HPT. Won't be out for a while probably, but I will have a look, and when I find, I will put a link in the description for an Amazon link, something like that. I might put an eBay link down there as well, so that people can get their hands on one of these if they really want one before it gets to your country. What else do I need to tell you? That's about it. There's not a huge amount of other features. This is the first generation of a tool like this. I mean, it's the first in the world, so it's not going to have all the features that future ones might have, but it's got all the basic stuff you need, and this here and the trigger are the most important bits as far as I'm concerned, and they did a good job there. I've seen some people say online that it looks too big and heavy. I don't think it's that big or heavy. It's quite light. I will weigh it shortly. Compared to a lot of half-inch routers, it's definitely not very big. Compared to my Triton, which I'll get out of the table in a moment and show you, this is quite a good size. I think it's time I show you how this thing works. Well, it looks like I only just turned that on in time. That's my first shot of the day with this router, and the battery is flat already. It didn't do as many cuts as I'd like. I will add it up, see how many linear meters we got. The battery got quite hot during that, obviously, and it is wanting to cool down before it starts to charge. So the 2.5 amp hour battery gave me just under 19 linear meters. What I've been doing here is putting a shiplap on the edge of these boards. They're about 13.5 millimeters wide by about 13 mil deep, so just over half an inch of material square being taken out. I also just had a crack at the same stuff with the Milwaukee router with roughly the same size router bit, but of course it's only got a 1/4 inch shaft, and got it all set up the same, and it did a lot better than I thought it would. So I'm going to put them up against each other here now in the video. So I'll do one side of a board with this, one side with the Hikoki, and we'll see if there's much difference. I think they'll both do it, but I think the Milwaukee will be a bit slower. So they did both do that okay. The Milwaukee felt a bit slower. I won't know until I watch the video, but it felt slower and it was just a bit harder to push through. This went through a lot smoother than this did, but this did extremely well. But you can't put a bit like this into the Milwaukee, or any 1/4 inch router for that matter. So can we put this in here? Is it going to fit? This is a pretty massive bit. This is what I use to make spar pool staves. I'll show you what it's like with a big Triton router, an electric router. And then we'll do the cordless router and see if it can cut the timber, so to speak. But actually, before I do that, I've got this 4 amp hour battery on here now. I'm going to go until this thing's flat and we'll see how many linear meters we get out of that. I'm going to be doing, as I say, this roughly half-inch square cutout on as many linear meters of Amora timber as I can. Amora is a hardwood from Indonesia, I do believe. Well, that's not sucking up bugger all dust, and just realised it hasn't plunged as deep because it's hitting the dust port. I'll try and hook it up so it's going out the other side, so it's coming out the front of the router. I wanted it out the back because I figured it'd be in the way less. Well, the 4 amp hour has just cut out. It's pretty darn hot feeling. Not too hot, but you know. We'll see if it needs the fan. Oh, it doesn't. No, she's gone straight into charging, so maybe the bigger 21700 cells do run cooler, because I've been using this battery far more constantly than I did with the 2.5. So the 4 amp hour is done and it's on the charger, and we got 32.5 meters. Is that better than the 2.5? So the 2.5 is 1.5 amp hours less, so 1.5 amp hours, what are we looking at there? It's 3/5 of 19 linear meters, so what's that, 11 or 12? So let's go 12. So that would mean 31. So it did 32.5. So it's an extra meter and a half. Does that mean that 21700 cells are better? Yeah, I think that's still within a sort of margin of error sort of area. But we got an extra meter and a half. Take out of that what you will. Still not a lot of meters on either battery. It is quite power hungry, this thing. So I have flattened this 2.5 again. It's given me about 18.5 meters, so it's pretty much the same. But the 4 is still charging. So now, this is quite hot, this 2.5. And now I can't even charge it. But thankfully I do have another 2.5. I need a dual charger, damn it. So we've got problems. Another one bites the dust. Battery is on blue, so it's 80%. But yeah, 3 batteries dead. It's chewing through the juice way too quick. I need one of them 4-way chargers and some more batteries. I am halfway through what I want to do with this thing for my fence that I'm building here, and it makes a lot of mess, as all routers do, and I can't get the dust extraction to suck hardly any of it up, so I'm just not using it. A lot of wood on the table saw here. That's my pile for the fence. So I have done one side of all of those basically with the router, and it is chewing through the batteries, and I've still got to do the other side. Holy moly. So this time the 4 is too hot to charge. You need a lot of batteries with this tool. Oh man, look at that. Another battery depleted, and the 4 amp hour still hasn't even started charging. Still cooling. I'm just going to swap this over and see if this one will start charging, or if it's going to be too hot as well. I'm guessing it feels very hot. Yeah. So I can't keep this tool running with 3 batteries. So I did just over 150 linear meters of this profile, and I think I was on the 7th battery charge when I finished. Once I have some batteries that are charged, we are going to put these two up against each other in a... Jeez. Once the batteries are fully charged again, we're going to put these two up against each other with these bits here. They are both 32mm in diameter, 1¼ inch, and they are set to 13mm deep, which is basically the maximum I can get with this. Oh, I can hear a battery is charged. And this one I could have gone a bit deeper, but with this on, that's as deep as it can go. I could take this off and go a bit deeper, but 13mm, that's probably enough. That's around ½ inch, and we'll cut a channel and I'll just see how they compare power wise. I'll try them on their highest speeds first, and then maybe the middle, and then the lowest, and then maybe back up to the highest again, just so you can see the difference. Size comparison wise, on the left we have the Milwaukee with a 12 amp hour, the biggest battery that they do. Next to that we also have, with the biggest battery, the Makita 1/4 inch router with the plunge base attached. Next to that we have the new Hikoki 1/2 inch plunge router, and then on the end here the Triton, the beast. So there you go, that's what they look like next to each other. Next up, we are gonna try this beast. Now, we are now getting into the realm of things you cannot do with a 1/4 inch router of any brand, size, type, because you can't get a bit this big physically inside the tool because it's 1/2 inch shaft and it's just too wide for the base of those small things. It would be a bit like picking up a lawnmower one-handed and trying to cut your hair with it. I'll try it with the 2.5 amp hour battery, and if it struggles too much we'll chuck the 4 on, see if it makes any difference. I doubt it will. I haven't noticed any difference in power between the 2.5s and the 4. I would try the 4 right now, but it's charging. Wow, well impressed. Well, that worked awesome. Way better than I thought it was going to. Wow, that worked super well. I am impressed at that. That was on the lowest speed. I didn't bother going through the other speeds. Worked perfect on setting 1, which is around 11,000 RPM. Should I try it now with this hand grenade? As for diameter, this is about as big as you can get. If you have a look here, we are almost at full capacity, nearly touching. So this is about 48mm in diameter, so 50mm is about your max you're going to get away with before you do some damage. My Triton router I think does up to 65mm. The tool with a 2.5 amp hour battery weighs 3.7 kgs. And with a 4 amp hour battery weighs a whisker under 4 kgs. 300 grams more for the bigger battery. With a router like this, to be honest, I didn't really notice it while I was using it. What about the Makita with the plunge base? We are looking at 3.2. See, so it's not that bad. 3.2 kgs. This with the 2.5, only 3.7. So yeah, not that bad. What about this Milwaukee without a plunge base, but with the massive, ridiculous battery? 3 kgs. So if you chuck the plunge base on there, you are looking at more than what the Makita is most likely. So weight-wise, the Hikoki looks pretty darn good to me, especially when you compare it to that. This Triton router with this fence on weighs around 7 kgs. So you're looking at pretty much double that. I never use this the way I just showed how I used this, because this is way too heavy, cumbersome and ridiculous. So for that sort of job, this is pretty darn good. Look at that fence. It's good and sturdy, but when you're pulling it around by hand, it's a bit cumbersome, and I've only really done it when I did the review of this tool. PS, if you want to see reviews of any of the routers in this video, take a look down in the description, because there'll be links, if I remember to put them there. So as you can see, the Hikoki much smaller, just so much easier to push around on the timber than this thing. This thing lives in a table all its life. That's why I bought it. It's a great table router. It's got good features for being a table router. This one being cordless, I wouldn't bother putting in a router table, seems a little bit of a waste. So normally I run 1/4 inch routers in my hand, this one in the table, and that's enough to get everything I need done. And this tool kind of fits somewhere in the middle. So what do I think of this tool overall? Well, I'll tell you where I think it fits in. If you don't already have a cordless router, if you have never gotten around to getting a 1/4 inch one, or if you're holding off getting a 1/4 inch one because you thought, every now and again I want to use a 1/2 inch, but I don't really want to buy a big corded 1/2 inch, but this one isn't quite going to cut it. Well, I think this is the tool for you. If you only want to use 1/4 inch stuff most of the time, but occasionally you think, I'm going to need a bigger one, I'm going to need something a bit bigger just to do those couple of small little tasks, well then this is the perfect tool for you. Is it a replacement for a 1/2 inch corded router? Definitely not. Not unless you know someone who can get you a heap of these cheap, because I've only got 3 Hikoki multi-volt batteries because I don't have a lot of Hikoki tools. That's enough to keep me going with a nail gun or an impact driver because they don't chew through the batteries very quick. But this thing, boy oh boy, as you will have seen in the video, it sucks through the juice. So, not that good in that regard. But, and it's quite a big but for a lot of you, if you want a 1/2 inch router that you can run all day, but you also want a 1/2 inch router that you can take to the job site in the back of your van and just whip out to finish off something on the edge of that kitchen cabinet or whatever, then this is the tool for you, because you can get an AC adapter, of course. So you can run this tool along with a lot of Hikoki's other cordless 36 volt multi-volt tools with an AC adapter straight off the mains power. That way you can run this thing all day. And then you have the option of putting a battery on it when you haven't got access to power, or you don't want to bother getting leads out and that sort of thing, if you only need to do 10 minutes work with it. So in that regard, it is a very good option. It didn't do all that much better than this when driving that, but that's as big as you can ever go with that. You can't put a 1/2 inch bit in there, so if you want to go further you need this, and I didn't think this was going to go much further. I didn't think it was going to cope with bits like this and this, but as you will have seen, running it on the lower speed on setting 1, it drove those no problem. You don't want to get too fast with those big bits because it can get a bit out of control and is more likely to stall. As for stalling, yeah, you can stall it fairly easily, as you can with all of these cordless routers if you push them too hard. But overall, it's a good start in the 1/2 inch cordless router department. First one ever, remember, so they're only going to get better from here. I am looking forward. Where do you think they'll go? Put down in the comments what you want to see next from the other companies. Who's going to get a 1/2 inch router out next? A cordless one. Is it going to be Milwaukee? Are they going to be able to get an 18 volt 1/2 inch router? I think that's really starting to push it. You would have to run it with one of these big sucker batteries, and it would probably just keep overheating and overloading like a lot of Milwaukee stuff is doing now, because they're just trying to suck way too much power out of these batteries. Or will it be Makita with the 40 volt system? A 40 volt one of these is essentially the same as this, 36 volt. Could they chuck two of those, make it an 80 volt? Might be a bit cumbersome on the top, would end up being something a bit more like the size of the Triton router, so maybe not that handy. Or, my money, DeWalt. Here's my challenge, a 54 volt, one of these suckers. You guys might have the edge there, might be just the right power situation to have a proper go at a corded 1/2 inch. So you guys, DeWalt, that's my challenge to you. I want a 54 volt 1/2 inch router, see if it can take on a corded router. Problem is runtime will again be an issue, presumably. I like it, I think it's a great start from Hikoki, but running it on batteries alone, a bit too much. If you just want to do small jobs every now and again, all good. If I didn't have cordless 1/4 inch routers, I would buy this instead of one of those. I think you could almost get away with just this and not having to have a 1/4 inch. Because this is small enough and light enough that you can do most of the things you'd do with a 1/4 inch one and just whoop around, but you've got the stability of the bigger base, you've got the built-in plunge features, you don't have to the extra expense of having to buy a plunge base like you do with all the small 1/4 inch routers. So I think if I was starting from scratch, I would potentially skip the 1/4 inch and just go straight to that. And that can basically do both. If you've got one of these, let me know what you think down below. What do you reckon about the battery life? I'll see you on another one real soon. It might be something to do with what's going on in the background there. So I'll see you soon for another review. Cheers guys, subscribe, like, yeah, hit the thummy thing, you know, all that stuff, and see you real soon. This is what it sounds like just sitting on the bench. Well, that blew all the crap off my bench. Oh, and it's got a really good brake. See ya.